Hello, everyone. I think we are live now. My name is Upkar. I'm a developer advocate with IBM, and I work with the Call for Code team. And today I had my partner in crime, Julianna Delua, also with IBM. Juliana, I don't see you here live, and I know you're sharing the slides. I'm gonna wait for a couple of minutes, see if you can join. But for those of you who are new to our YouTube, I guess I can call it a mini series. We're doing this around the AI Spot Challenge. Oh, hey Juliana, welcome. All right, let's see if you can share your slides so we have some content to show to our audience today. Um, by the way, I'm just coming from part 2 of our AI Bootcamp series this morning with Eric and Adam, and they went through model deployment, model monitoring, model management, and then also talked about trust in AI and machine learning models. So very good session. If you were not able to attend, you can watch the replay of the first session where we talked about data. Everything around data, collecting data, data wrangling, organizing data with tools such as Data Refinery, Watson Studio. And then part 2, like I said today, was around models using, again, IBM tools like Auto AI, a lot of open source stuff that we talked about. And then part 3 coming up next Tuesday, we'll dive into deploying these models at scale, and I'll be hosting an IBMer by the name of Romeo. He's very well known in the data science community. All right, so Juliana, thank you. Thank you for bringing up the slides. I was going to try and do that on my side, but I see you have it up. Can you hear me, Juliana?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect. I just gave a quick recap of the 2 sessions that we did last Tuesday and today. So we are good to go now. I'll hand it over to you for the next couple of slides.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone. As Upkar mentioned, we have had great turnout of many people around the world who want to learn about AI. And this session really is about preparing. And we did an announcement a couple of weeks ago. Last week, we came to you with the prep session. If you haven't seen it, please take a look at that and the links that are in the detail section. So today, we'll talk about the checklist and best practices. But before we get started, we wanted to let you know deadline is approaching August 18th. Most of you have already formed teams, or you already had pretty good ideas of how you want to use AI, but there are some people who might be just joining today, and some of the hackathon would take place over a couple of days, so you're not too late. Make sure you satisfy all the requirements. The participation agreement really shows the roles, prize details, and eligibility. And you should definitely go through the links so you know exactly what you need to be submitting. And the prizes, as we indicated, grand prize is $15,000. Run-up is $5,000, and second run-up is $2,500. And judging criteria, people are encouraged to really sit down and answer all these questions. These are equally weighted. And one of the most frequently asked questions is this AI or is this not an AI project? And what we would say is, look, you guys can convince us how you took advantage of AI. We've covered what is AI. There's also an industry definition of AI. So how you use that as AI as a technology to really ensure the completeness, effectiveness, some of the design and creativity and innovation. So just gonna cover a checklist of items. Make sure you read the blog and check all the relevant resources and clarify what you've decided to do. Have you been using much more sophisticated data refinery techniques? Are you correlating interesting insights in real time as well as some of the historical records? Are you predicting based on numerous data sources? Are you optimizing some of the important resources to help regions, help people, all of that stuff, right? And those would come out very clearly when you do the video. Make sure you attend all 3 sessions. We just completed the session 2. You can go back and listen session 1 and 2. Verify you use the Watson Studio. So when you sign up, you need to make sure that you use Watson Studio on the catalog itself. Read and sign the participation agreement. And then they comply with the fresh code rules, right? So it's possible you had some base code, but you decided, you know what, if I add additional optimization pieces to allocate the right equipment or right team members to, save people in need, that's kind of fresh new code you're writing and using AI. So that definitely counts. If you are creating a new application to help allocate and ship certain equipment, absolutely. And because we will have people who are examining your code, we will know exactly how, which section do you use fresh code and which section you might have used the open source. And then, one of the things we're going to cover a little bit later is to make sure you create a very compelling video. I would really suggest to write out what you're going to say. And, the audio piece is sometimes more important. And read the requirements now once again on the submission form. So you're absolutely prepared 8 days from today. So Upkar, just tell us a little bit more about the open source code, if there are specific rules or best practices we need to follow there.
Yeah, so around the README, right? So like Julianna said, the submission forms are open. Go check it out. Even if you're not submitting today, go through the form and see what pieces you need. One of the things you need for this competition is a GitHub repo with a README. And what we have done is we have provided a project sample for you to look at. There's a couple of different sections in this sample repo that you should make note of. So for example, there is a short description followed by a demo video that Julianna talked about. There's also an architecture diagram. That's really helpful for somebody new who's looking at your repo and wants to understand sort of the big picture and how the different components play with each other, right? And that's followed by a roadmap or a feature set or a future of the project. You can sort of tell the judges or tell us where you want to take this project, where you want to see it go. Like the couple of weeks that you had for this hackathon, it's hard to build a very complicated solution, but you might have a vision, and it's very important that you share that with the judges. And then, of course, if you can do a GIF or a live demo of some sort of what you've built, that's even better.
Great. So let's go through a few tips, right? So the first one is don't reinvent the wheel. Mm-hmm. And you will have the greatest impact if it addresses a long-standing problem. So I suggest you go back and see maybe previous winners or winning solutions. We've covered 2 successful ones, the Isaac Simo and Drone Aid. And it's a perfectly fine approach to say, you know what, these were wonderful solutions, but what if we can add this thing? It would have increased the impact. That's kind of another way to look at it.
Yeah, building on top of open source solutions, even the 2 that Julianna, you mentioned, they were built on top of other open source libraries and frameworks, right? We saw this morning, Adam and Eric go through Auto AI, right? And they also mentioned the data exchange, the model asset exchange, a repository of deep learning models. I would go take a look at all of those. For me, hackathon is more about, it's like, fitting different pipelines together. It's like doing a home renovation project or plumbing, right? You take different pieces, put it together to build something new. So that's a great tip, Juliana.
Great. The next one is document your source code repository. So, Upkar just went over this. The description, make sure that it's very clear, and the project roadmap, right? So let's say you run out of time to do one component that you wish you could have done. Just here is the roadmap. Here's what can be potentially added. Another thing is this is part of the open source. So obviously you would want other people to participate and contribute, after August 13th. So, you can explain that type of vision. And that's why create a great README file is absolutely critical.
So around that, Juliana, we do have a question. Is there a tool for the architecture diagram? The IBM repos seem to have the same look. So that's very true. There's a set of icons and themes that the IBM developer patterns use. I've used draw.io. I'm sure there's tons of other platforms you can use to create these architecture diagrams. You don't have to make it look like the sample repo at all. The idea is to be able to explain the overall architecture to your reader. So feel free to use any platform you like.
Great. Tip number 3, invest time to create a powerful video. And I think we covered this multiple times. We have technical judges, we have more creative judges and others. And you really want to write this out and showing, how you had specific business case. And these are the very important challenges that impact, many countries or many individuals or your community. Explain that. If available, quantify it and how you approach it. So if you can explain, why, and then you can explain the impact and, write it out. Let's say you can find out more here at this part that would help us really evaluate how you approach that problem.
Exactly. You know what they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So imagine what a video can do. Another tip I have around this is you don't have to just, don't just say what your README description says again in the video, right? A very powerful thing you can bring is actually interview your users, right? You're trying to solve a problem, you're trying to help a community, for example, bring somebody on from that community and interview them and put that in your video. So yeah. Good tip again, Juliana.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so I think if you're creating a real mobile app, for example, to help people in need, definitely, like you had something before, it was just texting, maybe showing an app, instead of just having one-to-one conversation in text with the multiple people, they're not getting help. Versus now app, you're actually routing different individuals to the right location, if you're using a GPS, and making it much more successful. Maybe you say you used to do X, it took hours or people aren't getting help, and now we have all these routing approach, and Bob can answer Susan, and Upkar can answer Julianna, type of things, right? Just make it much more powerful, and really pay attention to the audio element. Sometimes video with the translation process, it might not come out well, but if you can hear it, we'll pay really attention to what you guys are saying. So absolutely make sure to address that.
And Juliana, just to clarify, you don't have to build an app. That was an example, but I'm sure somebody's going to say, hey, do I have to build an app? No, absolutely not. But that was a good example, Juliana.
Okay, yes. Like I said, we received a lot of questions. Can I do this? Can I do that? I think the requirements that we mentioned are there, and we'll look. It's a competition. So obviously, if you guys can convince us by building app or not building up, but the solution was really compelling, we'll pay attention to that too. So. Definitely don't have to build the app, but certainly my imagination went there.
Juliana, and from what I can tell in the Slack channel, the competition is tough. I see a lot of good ideas, and folks, some of the teams have reached out to me as well, asking if this qualifies. And I say the same thing, like, if you can convince us, go for it. But yeah, some really good ideas coming through.
Yeah. And then the tip number 4, double check the permission. And if you are, working with other people in the organization, making sure that you check with the team as well in terms of the permissions. If you're working alone, again, if you are using, certain open source code, you can follow the rules to make sure that that is, fully documented.
Yeah, and I see there's it mentions typos. Very important. Presentation is key. So get somebody to proofread your repo once you're done with it. Use something like Grammarly. It's little things like that matter a lot. The thing about permissions, we do want the repo to be public by the time you submit, right? So even though you're working on on a private repo because it's a top secret project, that's fine. But when you do submit that repo, please make sure it is public.
Yeah, and then the judges, they're all IBMers. We won't make our process public during the time we are evaluating. So, we won't be obviously sharing. You could be assured that we maintain the integrity there. So once again, here is here are the steps. So sign up for the AI Bootcamp. Make sure you catch up on the previous sessions if you haven't done that already. You use the IBM Cloud account, and the Slack community has been expanding for the AI Spot Challenge, and it's coming close, but it's not completely late for you to join, and then submit your solution by August 18th. Are there any questions or something that we should address, Upkar?
No questions in the chat outside of the one that we already answered. Again, Julianna, the session this morning was amazing, so I can't wait till next Tuesday to attend the last session. The steps you just mentioned, it couldn't be simpler than that, right? There's just a couple of steps to submit your solution, be eligible, and yeah, I don't see any reason why somebody would not submit for this AI Spot Challenge.
Yeah. So I think we can conclude today's session. Thanks again all for participating, and we're super excited to see your submissions. And this concludes today's YouTube.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.